Well, here it is, December 2nd, and I'm out checking trail cameras. We just got dumped on with 18 inches of snow, and it's a beautiful world out here right now, but it sure is a lot of work to check trail cameras, but it's worth it. Most people just run a few trail cameras, maybe even just a couple, starting in late summer or early fall, and then when they're done hunting, they just shut them off and throw them in the garage for the year. And personally, I think that's a mistake. I run a few cameras all year round, and I gain a lot of information from those cameras that you never would otherwise get. And so I'm out here checking just a few cameras here today that I'll run right on through the winter. But let's talk about this. There are specific places where you can put cameras throughout the year that give you some real advantages, not just in hunting, but in shed hunting, and also in just learning more about deer, the way deer move about your property, types of food that they use, and so forth. There's a ton of information that can be gained from keeping trail cameras out year round. So let's just go through a year and talk about a year in the life of trail cameras and where you should move your cameras to at specific times of the year for the best advantage, both in your hunting and in your knowledge of how the deer move and deer biology on the properties you hunt. Once the hunting season's over, I'm primarily putting my cameras on food. And that may be food that I've placed out, like corn piles, that are, the objective is just to get the deer in front of a camera, or it could be on standing corn or soybean fields. It could also be in areas, if the ground is exposed, the deer will still be on acorns and beech nuts and so forth. So in the winter, it's pretty much all about the food. Now the trails become pretty obvious, and so it's a good idea to put some cameras on trails where these deer are heading from their bedding cover to the available food sources. And here's another thing to remember about the winter, particularly in the northern half of the United States, where winters can be pretty harsh at times. These deer will have two primary bedding type areas. One will be what I call solar bedding cover. The other will be thermal bedding cover. Now, thermal bedding is basically the thickest, nastiest stuff. When the weather's bad, they're going to go and tuck themselves into a creek bottom or something like that, or somewhere where they can get out of the wind and protect themselves during bad weather. And then solar bedding cover is basically where deer will get on the sides of hills, and when the sun's shining, they'll move around so they're not in the shade, but they obviously are looking to get warmed up by the sun. Now, the food patterns are really predictable at this time, and they're going to be high carbohydrate foods like corn and so forth. And then the patterns develop trails between these bedding cover and the available food, and these trails are excellent places. It's really obvious where these deer are moving, and those are great places to put the cameras, and you can kind of get a feel for the the best time to start looking for shed antlers. Another thing is the monitoring of predators, and keeping track of the predators. You can go out and snare some coyotes or whatever to keep the predators down. Now, when spring comes along, the first thing I'm going to do as soon as the snow's melted off is get those mineral sites out and get some fresh mineral on them and get cameras on those, so you can inventory which deer made it through the season. And as you can watch as the deer start to drop their fawns and stuff like that. That's just a really fun time to be looking at camera photos and learning more about the deer and how they interact and so forth in the spring. Now, by the time summer comes along, the minerals are still good. Food plots are good. You can use corn piles all summer to attract deer and get them in front of your cameras. Another important place to put cameras in the summer is on water, because deer use water a lot. And whatever green food is available, they'll be using it. This is another good time to start learning the bedding areas. And I like to put cameras right into bedding areas, and that's really important time to start learning that. But as late summer comes, then you got to get really serious about trying to figure out where these deer are bedding. You can put cameras right in the bedding areas, and you know, I like to go right before rain, and then I also wipe off a camera with scent killer wipes to make sure that you don't have your scent on it if you're going right into bedding areas. Cell phone cameras are great for putting in bedding areas, so you don't have to go in there and check them very often. But these bedding areas are going to mean a lot to you later on. Okay, now by about the 1st of September, my cameras are pretty much all on trails that are related to food sources again. And right now I'm starting to pattern these deer for hunting them, and they're in their patterns that they'll be in really pretty much until the rut, depending on the availability of food and so forth. Sometimes these food sources might not be obvious. They might be acorns or hazelnuts, something like that, and clover fields and so forth. But right now is the time when you're going to figure out where these bucks' core areas are. And you're also importantly going to want to find the doe bedding, because this doe bedding is going to mean a lot to you when rut comes. Around late September, I just kind of feel like my cameras are scattered. They're kind of all over because I'm trying to figure out where the bucks are settling in for their home ranges for the fall. A lot of times I'm putting cameras on the edge of fields, food plots, and things like that. That's the time when you also will see some new bucks moving into the area. And then, of course, along comes the end of October, when things are really getting hot and heavy, and scrapes are really opening up. You're starting to see new rubs. This is a great time to use a scent dripper on a scrape, whether it's a mock scrape you make yourself or a existing scrape. Get some good lure in there and put a dripper on it. And then by the end of October, I'm absolutely going to put my cameras on the does. I want to know where the does are, because the bucks are going to be moving in anytime. So the rut's going to start here around the 1st of November, and then I'm absolutely got my cameras on doe bedding areas and trails between the doe bedding areas. I want to know where the does are bedding. I want to know where they're feeding. And then I want the trails between, and that's where you're going to get pictures of the bucks, and this will really help you. This is up-to-date information that's going to help you actually shoot one of these bucks that you've been watching all year. So the rut winds down, and you know, about the end of November, the rut is pretty much over, and then you're going to put your cameras back on the food. These bucks are wound down. They're just exhausted from 3 to 4 weeks of rutting, and it's getting close to 1st of December. And now's the time you're going to inventory which ones made it through the hunting season. They're going to be looking for high carbohydrate foods, and they want to replenish those fat reserves. And then also they're going to be grouped up. Bucks and does are pretty much all going to be grouped up together. Sometimes you'll see them out feeding in the fields early in the evenings. This is a great time to have your cameras on the food sources once again. So then, you know, the snows fly, and we're back to winter, and we're back to those solar and thermal bedding areas, and it's just another annual system of keeping these cameras in the fields, monitoring those deer and the predators and all the other animals that relate to them. And it's just a lot of fun, and you will learn so much more about these deer and understand them so much better if you'll keep your cameras out year round. So thanks for enjoying this video with me, and I hope it's been helpful to you. I appreciate you hit that subscribe button and click the bell to make sure you don't miss any upcoming videos. Got a lot more great stuff coming, and leave a comment below if there's something that you feel like that could be added to this. We'd love to hear it. If you disagree with anything, of course, be civil, but let's hear your comments. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you on the next video.